You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Inside the Black and Gold. I'm Brennan YSL.
Sam Jane.
And Michael Housen. This week we have on Maryland men's lacrosse star Riley Reese to talk about his game winner against Ohio State. Let's get into it, guys.
All right, this week we are joined by the man who scored the game winner in overtime against Ohio State this past weekend, Riley Reese. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
If you had told me, or most people going into Saturday, even maybe yourself, that you were going to score the game winner, you probably wouldn't have believed it just because, defenseman and was your first career goal. Take me through that play and why you were in that position right in front of the net with a clear shot to score the game winner.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Kohler was on ball. AJ Larkin had a great slide to him, so got to his hands. He kind of threw the ball over and it went towards the midline. I kind of just ran up there to kind of give some dummy pressure to start, and our attackman did a great job of getting it over, so it was an over and back goal, and they picked it up, whistle ready, and they went, as soon as the ref blew it, they started running, so I just kept running the spots that we practice at our fast breaks I have to get to, so I kept running and hit down to the pipe. I remember seeing Spanos throw it to Urksa, and then Urksa threw it back to Spanos. I kind of looked around, and I was nobody was really near me because they sent a lot of people to Spanos. Right mindset. I mean, he probably would have made a play if not. So I just kind of peeled and kind of sat in an open spot, and Spanos had great vision to find me, and I just had to catch the ball and put it in the back of the net. So it worked out.
So it definitely worked out. This is something that's happened in practice before. You have a fast break like that, but obviously now you see it come to fruition in the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, we practice that stuff all the time, the situational based stuff, the unsettled stuff. So our coaches, I mean, they just harp on the same things, getting in the right spots and doing the right things, and just got to make it happen when we get that opportunity in the game.
Absolutely. Given your family, you've been around Maryland lacrosse your entire life. Both your parents had a lot of memorable moments at Maryland. How does it feel now to kind of have one of your own in a really big way for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I've been around Maryland my whole life, so obviously the tradition and culture have been big within my family, and my younger sister will be here next year. My brother's a freshman on the team right now, so getting to see my mom every day, not ideal for some people, but I'm not going to complain. It's kind of awesome for me. My dad obviously has a past with Maryland lacrosse, so kind of getting that experience and that feeling under my belt to be able to make an important play at an important time for the team, and be able to win a game. Like, winning a Big Ten game is always hard. I always keep saying that, but it really is, and I'm just really proud of the team. And if it wasn't me that scored, I would have been the same happiness, but at least we put out a win, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
Very well said. Maryland lacrosse is one of those teams. There's a lot of them out there, but really one of the teams you hear all the time for so many years harp on, next man up mentality. You've embodied that to the fullest extent this season. You can talk about it, you can hear it happen, you can be ready for that mindset. But what has allowed you in your preparation to be so successful, mainly in the last 3 games when you've taken a bigger role starting, but really this whole season for you?
Yeah, I mean, wasn't the ideal way to kind of get my opportunity at all. Will Shaw is one of my best friends, so having him go down was definitely not ideal. But I think the thing that has kept me prepared is, one, Will does a great job at helping me and Pete Lake and Michael Alexander, helping us out, because he's been around the block. He's played against all these teams that we're playing against. And our coaching staff, honestly, the biggest thing, Coach Bernhardt is the best defensive coordinator in the country, so he puts us in spots so we can be successful, and that's the way that he's always rolled, and he does a great job at it. So being able to put us in spots where we can succeed and us just having to go out there and do it definitely makes a difference.
What are some of the ways Schaller has still helped you guys, obviously, even though he's sidelined?
Yeah, I mean, he's always in the film room with us still. He watches film with me, Pete, and Mikey. So obviously Pete's our guy who kind of takes some of his matchups over, and Will helps him with that a lot because he's guarded all these guys. So Will can tell him stuff that he sees, stuff that he's played against, stuff that he thinks. Like, is he faster guy? Is he a slower guy than you think? But he's always been around, so having that experience, which is a big thing, which Coach Bernhardt definitely values and all of us value too, because you're going against things that maybe I haven't seen before, I haven't played against, but Will's played against it for 3-4 years now. So being able to just pick his mind on a bunch of stuff and seeing him at practice where he's like, you got to do this. Like, you just take it to the chin and you just roll with it. Trust him.
Seems like he might have some coaching in his future. What do you think for you guys has been the difference in these past 2 games? You can look at the numbers, you can look at goals allowed. Obviously, that matters. But what, from your perspective, from being on the field, has been the difference that's allowed you guys to be more successful in the past 2 games?
I think it's just more trust in each other. I think that we've kind of built it through practice. I think earlier this year we struggled with some things that historically we haven't struggled with, and I think we just kind of emphasized those things in practice, and each of us got on one another. We just kind of pushed each other to a point where you had to fix those mistakes, and we're kind of limiting those mistakes and sliding at the right time, whether it's clearing at a high percentage, stuff like that. Like, I think just making sure that we do us and we play our game, that's kind of what has helped our defense succeed, and our offense does the same thing. So
Absolutely. You guys come into the year as the preseason #1 team in the country. You have a weird start to the season where Richmond, who's now also looked like one of the better teams in the country, your game gets postponed against them. And then you take those 3 straight losses against, 3 of the better teams in the country. I think it's very fair to say, Syracuse, Princeton, and Notre Dame. What was the mentality knowing, hey, we're still a very good team, but we happen to lose 3 games to 3 very good teams?
Yeah, I mean, those 3 games, obviously you want those in the win columns, but we definitely learned from them, and it wasn't like, I mean, they were all like 1-2 goal games, which everyone kind of realized too. Like, we were right there, like something will click eventually, and it's kind of making sure each other never lose hope in a way and always stays confident in this group and what this group can accomplish, because we have all seen inside of our team what this group can be and how good we can be, and we know that it's about time that we're going to click, and I think we're starting to kind of peak at the right moment, and just that mentality of don't back down, like just be confident, be ourselves, and something we're going to make great things happen. So just emphasizing that mentality throughout the whole week and the whole season.
You've been on the team the past 2 years during the national championship runs. What lessons have you guys taken from those when maybe you didn't have as much success early on in some of those seasons to say, hey, we've kind of been here before? I think really I would mainly be talking about 2 years ago. Hey, we've been here before. We've lost some games early on in the season, but it really matters what you look like, late May.
Yeah, I mean, my class was here for that 2 years ago run, so we've taken a lot from that, honestly. Like, we've had our wins, we've had our losses, and kind of being able to just bounce back, because you leave that week in the past. Whatever happens in that week, you leave in the past and you use it as motivation for the next week. So I think having that happen to us before, where we can kind of find a recipe to bouncing back, has been huge for kind of the senior class to lead through this time. But yeah, I mean, I think that just bouncing back was our biggest thing, and we've done it before, and it shows people that we can do it again, no matter what the circumstances. So
I want to talk about your career at Maryland. You come in, obviously, people know who your parents are. You don't play freshman year. Sophomore year, you play, I believe, in most games. And then junior year last year, correct me if I'm wrong, you had an injury. And now, obviously, this year's been a bit different. Take me through that. Did you think at a point in time you might never kind of have your moment in Maryland lacrosse? Did that go through your head at any point?
Not really. I mean, that's always in the back of people. You always want to get on the field, but I played in a few games sophomore year, so I kind of filled a role, and everyone on the team has a role. And if my role wasn't ever to play, I was going to give my best every day to the team, no matter what, because that's how a team works, and that's how everybody else gets better. So that's how I've kind of always driven myself, just being a team first guy. So, I mean, if I wasn't ever going to play, I was going to work my tail off to play, but I got the opportunity this year, and I also got it sophomore year, so just got to keep moving, and that's how a team works. Next man up.
As I was saying, next man up mentality for Maryland lacrosse is always super strong. What are some of the lessons you would say that you learned from your parents specifically that you took about, what it takes to succeed at Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is more so from my mom. I think she kind of emphasized something in my brain where it's kind of just a positive reinforcement mindset, where it's kind of like you just self-talk to yourself, you self-talk to everybody else. Like, there's always going to be people who are pushing you down. Like, I mean, some social media, that always brings us down. A lot of people hate us out in the outside world, but just kind of pushing each other and kind of positively reinforcing each other has been definitely something that we've talked about as a team. And just to keep somebody who maybe having a bad week, just keep them going. Keep them going. Say, like, you're here for them. Like, let's go, let's go, let's go. We need you. Stuff like that. So my mom's definitely emphasized that from her coaching days into me, and I've definitely seen that when I was at her games back in the day. But
Super fair. Your parents obviously both coaches. Do they, after games, will you ever talk to them about, little stuff on the field? At this point in your career, are they still trying to, break down small stuff on the field, or is that really in the past when you were a kid?
no, I mean, they definitely still do it. My dad more so than my mom. My dad knows what's going on with men's lacrosse, I think, more than my mom does, but my mom's not naive, of course. But my dad, yeah, he always asks about stuff that we do, our game plan and stuff like that, who's covering who's. So he's definitely one to kind of pick my brain a little bit more. But my mom more so asks me questions about her games because I think she's kind of more worried about herself, but not in a bad way. But she's always picking my brain about her game. So it's kind of like a triangle in a way. So kind of just holding each other accountable and making sure each other aren't messing up, which is nice to have at least.
Yeah. Obviously, women's lacrosse, a huge game this week. Tomorrow at this point, or Thursday, if you're listening to this then, against Northwestern. Maybe the biggest game women's lacrosse so far this year. It's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to pull that one out. Need everyone there.
Yeah, that'll be a huge game. I want to talk about your career personally. I know you didn't play freshman year, didn't play last year, but you are graduating. Are you planning to stick around the Maryland program after this year?
Yeah, I will be here next year. So I have a fifth year that I'll be staying around with some of my classmates here who have a fifth year as well. So can't wait for that.
Very sweet. Well, looking forward to watching you progress even more, and specifically looking forward to the next 2 regular season games and then postseason play. So that's all I got for you, Ryan. Thanks so much for hopping on this morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, great interview with Riley. Obviously, a big turnaround for the men's lacrosse program in the past few weeks. We're going to get to all that. Let's start with basketball. Sam, you obviously covered the championship, kind of fallout last night in Ann Arbor. Must have been a super cool experience. Let's talk about some of the fallout happening with the Maryland women's basketball team. What are you going to say?
Real quick, B, before you go on. If Maryland were to ever win a national championship, how rowdy do you guys think it would get? Like, do you think Route 1,
Oh my
like,
God.
by the bars? I know the videos from 2002 were crazy, but just, like, how insane do you think it would be?
Yeah.
Let's assume basketball, right?
Unbelievable. Well, men's basketball or football or
Football isn't happening.
maybe women's
We can
basketball.
Chalk it up to men's.
Sure, but okay, if that were to happen, I don't think you would drive on Route 1. It would be awesome.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, Sam. You saw the reaction last night. Would you rather be in the stadium or in your college town if you're a college student and you win a championship?
Great.
I think if you're older, you'd say, let's say you're 25, you'd rather be in the stadium because, partying with a bunch of 21-year-olds isn't as enticing. But if you're a student, there's something special, I think, about being in downtown, being in College Park. You saw it last night in Ann Arbor, right? But also, I mean, imagine you're in the student section. I think both are really cool. I think I'd probably rather be in College Park, be in the town.
What bar are you watching the game from?
I'm sticking with my hometown choice. I'd go Loonies.
Okay.
Oh God.
What
about you, bud?
I think
I don't know. I'm very superstitious. I watch a lot of games from my couch in my apartment, but
Brendan would have a very quick route down to Route 1 by the
without doxing me, whatever. No, I think Ben's. I think it's classic, right?
Yeah.
You got to.
I'd be at Looney's. I knew you were going to say Ben stuff.
Yeah, I was I was never worried that you wouldn't say Ben's. Brendan,
there's a reason that they say let's go to Ben's. Come on.
That's a good hypothetical, B. I think
Ben's is okay. It's just kind of wash.
I think for the question you asked, it really just depends too on I think where you're at, right? Like in this case, like being in Indianapolis, like that's there's so many Michigan fans there. Like
that's true.
Like there was just after the game, you could go out and you could party with all the Michigan fans, right? But say Maryland played a game in San Antonio, you're probably not getting as big of a Terps crowd there. So I would choose to watch it in College Park. But I think when I was covering it yesterday and seeing all these kids just in straight euphoria, right? Just so happy. I just was jealous and thinking dang, we had as students a win over Purdue and it felt on top of the world. and that was a regular season win. Like imagine a national championship. It would go insane. So I think Route 1 would be slammed.
I have one final point on this. I think it matters a little bit, especially for the Final Four in the national championship, where you'd actually be in that stadium. Obviously, they're playing in football stadiums. If you're way high up in the rise, there's obviously a very different experience if you're kind of in the student section right behind the basket. So, a lot of variables here. Fortunately or unfortunately, they're a bit foolish to discuss given the state of Maryland basketball. But that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to start with the women's basketball team. There's been, it's all transfer portal news now. Transfer portal officially opened. Women's basketball had some people in the transfer portal I really did not expect. I think the main person that no one expected to go in was Kayleen Smykel. She posted when she, decided to take this year as a medical redshirt that she'd be back. Obviously, some months later, that's not the case. What were your guys' initial takeaways from that news?
I was a little shocked. I was a little surprised because when she went down with that injury, when she said that, that she was going to be opting for surgery and not playing the rest of the year, I believe she said in her Instagram post at the time, "I'll see you guys next season." So, something between then and now shifted with the dynamics of her relationship with Maryland. Maybe she couldn't get paid by Maryland what she wanted. Maybe Maryland's looking at bigger options in the transfer portal. It was definitely a shock, though, especially when, the player you had tabbed as kind of the star on this roster heading into this year, the player that led the team in scoring a year prior. It's definitely a shock to the system to see her go away. But I understand she wasn't rehabbing with the team and she wasn't with them during the tournament as well.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Smykel, obviously, a huge loss, 18 points a game in her first year. That scoring went down before she had knee surgery, but this is a player who is an incredibly talented scorer, right? I think we all pretty much penciled her in to be one of the top players. I'd imagine she probably thinks she can get a significant pay raise elsewhere. This is someone who is likely commanding a decent chunk of change. And I think that it makes sense in a way for her, leaving a crowded guard rotation to then stepping into maybe a better monetary spot and maybe a spot that she feels she can be a clear, decisive number one scorer.
You're right. I mean, the logjam at guard was tough, right? You were going to have Kayleen Smykel, Kendall Walker, Bree McDaniel, throw Addie Mack into there. I'm sure I'm missing some names. Leah Barthelemy, who obviously went down with injury early in the year. If she comes back, still a lot of question marks. At some point, at least one of those names was going to have to move. It's looking like Kendall Walker and Kayleen Smykel are going to be the people out. Obviously, we had seen in the past week, Oluchi and Bree kind of making their commitments to come back to Maryland, but other names in the portal as well. Brianna Williams, we talked about last week, and Izzy Ozzy Mamadou also in the portal. Not that those weren't expected. I thought Izzy was probably going to stay, but, it's that point in college basketball, in the transfer portal, in the cycle where we're at now. And, over half of people in men's and women's basketball within the first day are in the transfer portal. So it's kind of to be expected. People are going to see options elsewhere. I would expect Maryland to make some huge moves in the transfer portal this offseason. They kind of have to. But I wonder how much of the players leaving was, them doing it on their own terms, and how much was Brenda saying, you might not have that much of a spot here next year. Or you can have a spot, but I can't guarantee how much playing time you're going to have, because she is looking at bringing in some transfers.
How does, nobody has come in yet. We don't know who these portal additions are going to be, but with the departures we got right now, does this change the way you view next year's roster?
A little bit without Kayleen Smykel. I mean, we didn't get to see her and Aluji play that many games together. Obviously, Maryland has some very solid freshmen coming in next year. Mimi Theriot and Jordan Jackson highlighting that the class coming in. They can make an impact in their first year for sure. We've seen how Brenda uses freshmen. Obviously, Addie Mack this past year was the prime example. They had a really, really, really strong roster coming into this year, and they got derailed by injuries, and they obviously, didn't make it to the Sweet 16. I think at this point in time, they definitely have stuff set up in the transfer portal. Nothing is guaranteed. We saw with Gracie Merkel last year. Like they're behind the eight ball in terms of who they have coming back on their roster next year. But so are so many other teams in the country. I wouldn't be that afraid. Alucci's going to be one of the best players in the Big Ten next year. Bree, obviously not exactly sure how she's going to be after her rehab, but when she's playing very well, she can be a starter, and if not, very, very, very strong defensive sixth man. We talked about last week the biggest weaknesses, and obviously with the roster kind of getting blown up, we will have to revisit that once we see who they bring in.
Shifting to the men's side, a couple departures, a couple reported departures. I don't believe they're official yet, but we're going to start with probably the most interesting name in the portal. Steve Blake's son, Nick Blake, enters the portal.
There's no way that
it's interesting to see a program legend leave.
Program
Nick
legend.
Blake,
Nick
I wouldn't.
Blake is a program legend.
His father is a program legend.
Shout out Nick Blake. Hey, rest in peace, 25, program legend.
Very, very inconsequential transfer, but also Miles Rice, Isaiah Watts, two players who Rice not so much, but Isaiah Watts, key rotational piece for the Terps. Rice had that weird stretch where he wasn't playing at times for the Terps, so we kind of theorized that he could be gone. Looks like that's going to be the case. And then Harper, Brendan, I don't even know if I've seen this guy on the court. Was he injured?
He was redshirted. Josiah Harper redshirted.
George Turkson back though. Shout out George Turkson.
Yeah,
George Turkson. No, so yeah, I mean, none of those are 100% confirmed, but the players themselves haven't mentioned the end of the transfer portal, but a lot of reporting suggests those guys will be gone. It's possible they'll be back. I'd just be very surprised at this point.
No, they're gone.
The biggest question for men's basketball is Darius Adams, I think. That's the biggest question. Is Darius Adams going to be back, and who are they going to bring in the transfer portal? At that point, at this point, that is the biggest news, in my opinion. But we'll obviously have to see what ends up happening. Well, and they got to bring in some very strong transfers, and there are a lot of them out there with DMV ties.
Yeah, Brendan.
The question is, will they come?
Not a bad year to need a point guard, and you brought it up, right? Darius Adams could come back. I could see Maryland. I think they want Adams back, and this is not. I don't have any real insight into this. I just kind of imagining how these things work. I think there's a legitimate possibility that they're probably putting out feelers for some of the guards in the portal. And if they get someone that they think is better right away than Darius Adams, and Darius Adams is demanding what I would have heard and also imagine he's asking for, that they're going to be like, all right, man, it's all good, cut ties and move on. Because listen to the list of on-ball and two guards, right? Jackson Shellstead, Isaiah Johnson, John Blackwell just entered the portal. You got guys like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, the Buffalo guards that went in. Elijah Wilkerson. There is a significant amount of talented guards that I think Maryland could really look at and potentially target as, someone that they could bring in. One of those players, two, I guess I should say, have Maryland ties, both from the area and also played for a former Maryland coach. Villanova's Caden Lewis and Bryce Lindsay both entered the portal. Lewis was a stud this year, a freshman. He is obviously from the DMV. Went to Villanova and pretty much had free reins. I was shocked that he entered the portal. He's going to get a huge payday, north of $2 million, I would imagine. If Maryland has the money, which I don't know, I kind of doubt it with how much they're probably paying Baba, Payne, and Mills. That would be a home run hit. I just don't know if that's the type of program / money that he's looking for.
Lindsay also played under Buzz at Texas A&M, which I don't know if that makes you think he's going to come to Maryland more or less, but he transferred out. It's going to be his fourth school in 4 years. He left A&M, went to James Madison, then went to Villanova. He didn't play that many games. Exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, he played under Buzz, only played 8 games that year, averaged 1 point. I mean, he has 2 years of eligibility left. His real first year of college basketball is the JMU year 2 years ago. I'm sure someone Buzz is still in contact with. He obviously left, so who knows how that complicates things. He would be a huge addition to Maryland. But yeah, as you said, Sam, there are so many A, guards, and B, just talented basketball players. Some of them above Maryland's price range. But if you're a college basketball team out there and you have enough money, you could be a no-name school right now and build an incredible starting five. Kind of the way we saw Michigan, obviously not a no-name school, but Michigan, that team is really, really built through the portal, as most schools and most teams do so now. So that's why, as we said all year, like, sure, there's fair concern to be worried about Buzz and the team, but at the end of the day, it matters who they bring in the offseason, because we knew the season was a failure. Really, it's kind of a dumb thing to say, but Maryland's season is going to be won in the next 3 weeks. It depends who they bring in.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
I mean, shoot, you just had a guy who averaged 24 points a game at Kansas State, PJ Haggerty, enter the portal like 30 minutes ago. So
yeah, I mean,
it's abundant.
Everybody's entering the transfer portal. I mean, at this point, if you're a really good college basketball player, why wouldn't you say to yourself, "Hey, I might as well just spend 4 years of my life traveling around America, experiencing a new school each year"? It's getting to a ridiculous point, in my opinion.
Yeah, we all know that Brendan hates the portal. Let's move off of it and go into men's lacrosse. Obviously, we talked to the hero of the past week, so we don't have to dive a ton into it. Be about past game recaps. I guess I'm just looking for you to kind of diagnose, this team is clinging on their life support. Above 500 now, obviously, which is a big deal. Beat Michigan and Ohio State, probably their two easiest games left on the schedule. Just give me, I don't need a 30-minute diagnosis, but give me a 1 through 10 level of confidence that you think this team can have a winning record at the end of the year. Obviously, a significant stretch of games here coming up against some pretty tough opponents.
Yeah, you're right. The 2 games remaining, they got Rutgers and Johns Hopkins. 2 make-or-break games. They win both of these games. I would say they're pretty confidently in the NCAA tournament. Projections after the Ohio State win have them in the NCAA tournament, kind of right on that edge, but most projections would see Maryland lacrosse to be there. They got to go 1-1 here. I think it's possible that they go 2-0 the way they've been playing defensively. The Ohio State win was huge, but early in the year they've looked like a different team the past 2 weeks. My confidence out of 10, I would say a 7. I would say if you asked me 4 games ago how I felt about this team chances to make the NCAA tournament or finish out the season strong, I would have probably had like a 3 or 4, just because their inability to A, close out games, and B, start fast. The Virginia win is now massive. The fact that they did not drop that game in triple overtime is kind of a season saver, even though they've been lost by 4 the next week to Penn State. The Ohio State game, the same way. If Maryland loses that Ohio State, they are looking at a really tough way. They're at an uphill battle. Maryland has a legitimate shot to win the Big Ten. Here's the stat. Here's what's changed. Maryland is 142-13 since while John Tillman's been the coach, when Maryland allows 9 goals or less. Every game so far this year, they've allowed 9 goals or less. They've won the past 2 weeks. They've done it. What's changed? Brian Rebel played much better. He had 10 saves. But defensively, even despite losing Schaller, some of this is to Riley Reese's credit, as we talked to him about. But this team has looked better defensively, and that's always been Tillman's pride and his bread and butter. And they've looked much better defensively the past 2 weeks, and that's what's led to those 2 wins. Can they keep it up against Rutgers and Johns Hopkins? Going to be difficult, but it's possible. Sam, you said that this team's season was over. Where's the gavel at for you right now?
Brendan, the gavel's never left, my friend. A judge doesn't revoke his decision. Eventually, if it gets up to the Supreme Court and they overturn me, you know what, and win the Natty, so what? I don't think that's happening. I think they're going to go 1-1 this week, which I think would leave them on the outside looking in, heading into the Big Ten tournament. And I think at that point, you'd probably need to at least make the semis to have a chance, and probably the championship to feel good about getting in, if I had to guess.
Yeah, the Big Ten's, there's no Big Ten team that's undefeated in Big Ten play anymore. All those are going to be quality wins, maybe except for Michigan. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see if you're a ball knower. You made the prediction at a very fair time.
I mean, I did kind of hop on the wave, but it's like Maryland Lacrosse's demise. But also, like, I feel pretty confident about it. I'm going to stick with it. I again think they go 1-1 this week. We'll see.
Or over the next 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
but
my apologies. One
to finish the season, but
weeks.
yeah,
I do want to say that I was pretty high on the women's lacrosse team after we talked to Riley Reese, and that prediction is rang true. They beat Rutgers, dominant.
They dismantled Rutgers.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful.
Rutgers is pretty mid, I think. I watched that. I've been watching the highlights. It's hard for me to catch live games out here in Michigan, but I have been watching the highlights and scoring 18 goals. There was a lot of them. Season high in that category, and now they get a chance to play their arch nemesis Northwestern, who it's kind of have a weird season for the Wildcats. They beat UNC, who's one of the best teams in the country, but they also lost to Colorado and Ohio State. So a weird year.
And Syracuse. Syracuse has been good, but yeah,
Syracuse
very weird season for Northwestern. They're good, yeah.
I think I would probably favor Maryland by like 2.5 goals if I had to guess. I think this will be their toughest test in a little bit here, and I'll be very interested to see, we know that this team is going to probably be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. There's no question, right? How are they going to handle playing a team that's kind of given them some trouble over these past couple of years? That's going to be fascinating to me.
The next 2 weeks are absolutely huge for Maryland women's lacrosse. They got Northwestern, as you said, number 4 team in the country. Michigan, the 6th best team in the country. The last game at home during the regular season for Maryland. Hey, I mean, this might be one of the biggest games across all of college sports this week. With basketball ending, this is a huge game. It's a really big game for Maryland. It's a monkey off the back game. It's proved to the rest of the country, not only are we legitimately the best team in the country, but also prove to ourselves that, they can beat Northwestern. They almost had Northwestern's number in the Big Ten tournament last year. That didn't end up going their way. They had the formula last year to beat this team. Once again, resides on very good defensive play. This Maryland team this year has been a little more offensive focused. But the way JJ Soriano has been playing and the way she played the last time these two teams squared off, I think Maryland has a very legitimate chance to win this game. They've been a much more consistent team offensively through the year. But looking at what Northwestern did to UNC, what no other school has been able to do to UNC, that has to scare Maryland a good amount. I think Maryland's a better team offensively because they've been so strong with their balanced scoring and the way Lauren LaPointe has been one of the best players in the country. But this is a huge test. I'm not sure, Sam, if I'd put it at 2.5. I'll take Maryland to win this game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than some of Northwestern's other ones this year and for Maryland. I'll take Maryland 13 to 12.
Be a tight one. Looking forward to that one. Can't say I'm really looking forward to Maryland against Navy in baseball. I mean, obviously it's a in-state rivalry. Whoa, big news here, and that's Ohio State gave it to the Terps, a sweep against Maryland. They have now plummeted to 14-18 and 2-10 in the conference. Michael Houses talks about progress and making the Big Ten tournament, and this is, we're looking for this to really be a building block year for Matt Swope. Unfortunately, Maryland is last in the conference. They find themselves as another year of being a cellar dweller. And Michael, my question to you is simple. When is enough enough?
Man, I was thinking about picking up my gavel today, but I think I'm going to hold it for another week. I think I'm
the
going to
UMBC win.
What
the
needs
UMBC
to happen,
win.
Michael? Do they need to die on the field for you to declare the season dead?
That's a bit ridiculous.
No, I mean, I won't know. You mentioned the season is pummeling. You failed to mention the 11-0 win, the run rule win they had over UMBC today.
Wow.
It's a step forward.
Mike.
You sound like
Mike.
You sound like the Hump Day commercial from years ago. Mike.
Yeah, Michael. If they didn't run rule UMBC today, I'd be sad. I bet.
Michael, can I tell you what Maryland's done in their big?
There's no way to sugarcoat the past weekend. They got swept at Ohio State. It's the third sweep of the season. This is not good. Again, that being said, there's 6 more Big Ten series left. The season is still long. They can still sneak into the Big Ten tournament. There's a shot, but I mean,
Mike, if I told you on April 7th that the Maryland baseball team would only have one more conference win than the Maryland softball team, either you would have thought that the softball team had the best season they've had in years, or that something has gone terribly wrong for the baseball team. If I had told you that, many, many months ago, if I told you at the start of the season, obviously April 7th is today, if I told you that many months ago, you would have looked at me like I was insane. I cannot believe this is the reality.
Yeah, but it's the same stuff that we've talked about for the past 2 years now. It's the pitching. The pitching is not good. You give up 10 runs in your Friday opener at Ohio State. You give up 14 the next day in a 14-12 loss, and you give up 7 in a scoreless game against Ohio State in the Sunday game. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. And it's the same issues that we've been talking about. Even when the offense is going like they were in that Saturday game, pitching
Michael,
isn't there. I really don't have that much to expand on the topic this week. Like,
don't get it. Hey, are you raising your voice at me?
Yes, I am.
Let me quote Nick Cronin. I will give that to you, Michael. Their remaining series against Big Ten teams, this is the one glimmer of hope that I will extend as an olive branch to you. They play all sub 500 teams in the Big Ten, at least in conference record. So this will be the easiest stretch of their schedule. I don't think it's really going to matter ultimately. I think this team is one of the worst in the Big Ten yet again. But it is, I guess, a point that you could look to and say, hey, like, we can string some wins together against Michigan State, against Iowa, those type of teams. Indiana isn't as good as they normally are. Like, there's a decent chance here that they could go on a run. I just don't see it happening. I don't think the pitching is good enough. And the offense, you're right. The pitching has been the problem, since we've gotten into school here. But it's not like this offense has been so dynamic, right? Like,
it's inconsistent.
It's so inconsistent. I feel like, I didn't cover the team, but this was the case last year as well. The team was inconsistent. Like you look at the numbers and like the average is good, right? Like the home runs, they're I think third in the conference in home runs when I looked it up. Yeah, they've hit 50 homers. They're walking at an extremely high rate.
They hit five on Saturday, right, Mike?
Right. They obviously have talent offensively, but the problem is, and Michael made a great point, it's just that they're so inconsistent. In the Sunday game against Ohio State, you get shut out after scoring 12 and 8 runs. Against USC, you score 10 runs, but then in the Sunday game, you score 4, right? And you'd love to see your pitching staff pick you up. And I'm not putting the blame of this team on the offense, right? It is clearly a pitching problem, 100%. But there's still, I think, just a nature of inconsistency, and against high level pitching, they're not as good as I think we sometimes build them out to be, right? And this is a team that's...
It's just weird because they have the pieces. Like Lance Williams is a guy you bring in the offseason, and you're like, this is going to be our ace. And now he's pitching on Saturdays. What happened there? Like Jake Yeager, big, talented freshman pitcher who comes in last year, has some struggles. You can put that towards being a freshman. This year, it looks like there's been no progress for him. Not to talk about progress and get into a Loxley convo, but, it just doesn't seem like there's the same amount of development going into these pitchers as there is the hitters, and it doesn't make sense. Again, though, 12 teams can get into the Big Ten baseball tournament, and I've said all along that they can get into that postseason, I would consider this season a success. Sam, if they go on that run that you're talking about is possible, considering that the run they have coming up, they're playing against an Indiana team this weekend that's 12-19. If they make this late season push and sneak into the Big Ten conference tournament, is that a successful season for you?
Absolutely not. I never set the parameters before the year that making the Big Ten tournament was a win. Like, I thought we were talking about competing for an NCAA tournament. Buddy, they're so far off of that, it's not even, like, in the discussion.
Their only shot of making that is making the Big Ten tournament and winning the Big Ten tournament.
Winning the entire thing. I'm sure if they go on this miraculous run, Michael will try to call it.
Remember how many times Mike mentioned, like, I think Penn State, didn't Penn State do it or something?
Yeah.
Mike mentioned that 3 times an episode last year. Don't worry if they make it, guys. Penn State one time did this. They won 8 games in.
By the way, guys,
5 days.
Jawan Howard went 8-24 in his last season. Buzz Williams taking Maryland to the Natty next year. Woo!
Oh god.
No, I think it would be obviously a good end to the season, Michael. I think that it is a possibility. It could happen. I just had higher expectations for Swope, right? And now you're
Yeah.
you're 3 games behind Indiana and Michigan State, right? Like if they lose 2 out of 3 to Indiana and then lose to Michigan State, it's cooked. It's over. So like this is the point where we're at in the season. I just never thought we'd be talking about that, in year 3 of Matt Swope because, you like to paint me out to be a Matt Swope hater, and
You are.
no, I mean I'm not. I just am. I was as big of a fan as you when they hired Matt Swope. We were all on the podcast saying this is an excellent hire. Like, no question about it. This guy is clearly qualified for the role. He loves the job. Like, it's incredibly disappointing how it's panned out here through 3 years. And this season has been, nothing but that. So,
They need to do the the West Virginia football scam. No, Virginia Tech football scam, where you fire your head coach, you hire a new head coach, and the head coach hires a former head coach as the defensive coordinator.
So you're saying just keep Swope as hitting coach, go back to where he was with Rob
Jimmy
Vaughn?
as much as I love Jimmy Jackson, man, he's eventually got to go. I mean, you got to make some sort of change with the
Friend of the pod.
staff. Friend of the pod. Always will have hand up. Love you, Jimmy, but I'm not calling for his job, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's very clear that at some point something needs to change. Whether that's
I'm not calling for his job as I call for his job.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I hope the guy gets fired. I'm just saying it does something. No. There obviously is something that's not working with the pitching.
Something's missing right now.
Yeah, 100%. So anyway, enough of Maryland baseball. Michael, let's really quick talk. You had a conversation.
Whoa! Can we not talk? Can I give my softball update?
No, shut up, Brendan.
Wait, they lost to Penn State. They've lost 13 straight Big Ten games. Gymnastics season ended at the NCAA regional. They posted 197.775. My final piece of information is that here Mathis got married.
That number good for gymnastics?
Solid
number.
They finished third in their region, so they were one place away, but they weren't that close to the second place team. But hey, they keep making regionals. At least they're making the postseason. Unlike I guess baseball, you could say.
For a reason.
That's tough. All right, if you were interested.
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, go for it, Sam. This is real information now.
If you were interested in that, great. But now for a more exciting topic, Michael, really quick, you had a conversation with Jim Smith today. Yeah. Story came out in the Baltimore Sun. Everyone should go read it. It was really good. I think Michael did a great job. I would have liked to have seen a quote or two from Locks or Buzz, but obviously, I think you talked and touched on a lot of the concerns that fans have. Couple things I want to hit on from this article, and I just kind of want to get the general takeaway you had from what Jim was talking to you about, particularly when it comes to how he handled the Michael Locksley situation this season, announcing or reaffirming his commitment, I should say, in the middle of the season after saying that would not happen. What was your kind of, not just like what was in the story, but just the general takeaway you had when you were sitting down with him face to face and getting a sense for how this guy operates?
Well, I can't be sure the story that he told me is true. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that actually happened behind the scenes that they will not share. But he said that they were going to keep Locksley all along and that Locksley was always going to be able to come back and coach for the 2026 season. And it was weird timing, like you mentioned, because 5 days before he posted that open letter to the fans, he told the Baltimore Sun it'd be silly to make a move in the middle of this year. What ended up happening, they pointed to that post by Rob Reinhart. He's the parody account on X who likes to tweet out fake news. He had tweeted out on November 2nd that Maryland was firing Locksley. Smith pointed to that tweet saying, we had to clear the air. We could not let that rumor, even if it was from a parody account, kind of let it take its own life to end the season when they never had an intention of making a change. I'm not sure I buy that.
So what's your theory?
I mean, that post came 2 weeks before they put the open letter to the fans. So I'm not necessarily believing that's everything that happened. I think that it got to a point with the crowd chanting to fire Locksley, with the team going on that losing streak. to end the year, where it was at a 6-game streak when he announced the change. They still had a chance to technically make a bowl game if they won their final 2 games, which they didn't do. I think he just felt like we have to get this out. We can't have this hanging over our players. We can't have this hanging over Loxley. There has to be some affirmation for him going into next year so that there isn't this cloud hanging over the program.
We've talked about that decision a lot.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the part that you kind of reported on. It's from his perspective, like, what's he supposed to say? Yeah, I almost fired the guy that's going to be the head coach next year.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, he's,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the fake tweet is hilarious. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think
that's
it's
very odd.
That it crossed Jim's timeline for sure. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
if every fake tweet ever crossed the athletic director of a big university's timeline, I mean, they'd have to put out a statement every day.
I mean, so you ask him, like, all right, what are you confident in with Loxley? Like, what makes you so confident that he's the guy to lead this program? A question that Loxley himself could not answer when I asked that to him after the final game. But Smith talked about the 3 straight bowl wins from 2021, 23. Again, that was the first time that happened in program history. He mentioned the shortened 2020 season. Maybe they make a bowl game there if they play a full season. All those NIL changes, and Maryland being the lowest spending team in the Big Ten. You know, he's optimistic that they have over 70% of that production coming back from last year. All that young talent, Malik Washington, Zahir Mathis, Sidney Stewart. You got Zion coming in. And he talks about those relationships that Loxley has, you know. But again, that is what we've always been saying about this team. Oh, they have the talent. Loxley knows how to make these relationships. It's these close losses that just need a flip. You know, at what point are we like, all right, we're saying the same thing now. We're entering year 8. Like, let's go.
Yeah, the other question I had for you, you know, you touched on the Buzz Williams stuff really quick because I think that one was more cut and dry. Smith said that he heard what fans were complaining about, or reporters also, I think, in regards to Buzz's availability. Said, I think coach knows it needs to be better. He committed fully to Williams. I wasn't really expecting anything else. Like Brennan said, what is the guy going to say exactly? One thing I was curious that really wasn't touched on a ton of in your story, and I'm just wondering if you had a conversation with him about it. Obviously, revenue generation has been a huge part of why Smith was hired and what he's touted as kind of his main skill. What did he say about if there's been an actual improvement in that area? And also, you know, how is that being related to NIL? Because I think that's where fans care the most, right? Like the stadium upgrades, all of that, like putting in water stations and the stuff they're doing at CQ. That's cool. That makes for, fun press release. But fans want their dollars, and I think donors want their dollars to be contributing to winning. So I guess, what was the sense that you got from talking with him about that? What did he say?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked about that because, there's recent stories published where Maryland was in the bottom of the Big Ten for the federal year 2025. We talked about this. This is pre-Jim Smith. So this is right before he comes in. That's that Crab 5 Sweet 16 run. That's that first 4-8 season by the Terps on the football field. He said it like, they're not close to the middle of the pack in the Big Ten right now. They're about 50 to 60 million away from getting to the middle of the pack. And, I asked, how do you close that gap? And quote, he said, there's no silver bullet. You don't just pick up 60 million and find yourself in the middle of the Big Ten. It takes time to build. So this is a process for him. What he is doing though, weekly, he's talking with boosters, he's talking with donors, he's at fundraising events, he's trying to build it up and get Maryland back into a better financial spot. The good news is 2027, Maryland gets the full revenue shares for being part of the Big Ten Conference. So Smith,
I cannot believe it. That's God, that is such a ridiculous contract they signed many years ago. Wow. I didn't realize it still hadn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, so Smith called that a little bit of like a net neutral, where now you're kind of evened out, and that'll kind of be allocated towards that revenue share now for the Terps. That sort of money is going to be going into that 20.5 that the Terps are able to spend towards their student athletes. So, he's aware there is no flip of the switch. You get Maryland right back into a good financial spot. But, they got to drive up revenue in order to improve their programs and pay down some of the debt. He's aware of that. It just takes time. Rev share wise and how they make those balances. Jim Smith said that was set by the previous administration. So that's Damon Evans, that's Colleen Sorum, and he said that it worked pretty well this past year. So they're going to keep doing that balance that was previously set. I thought that was pretty interesting that he's not tinkering with that at all.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Really good insight. To get more on what Michael talked to Jim about, head over to the Sun. Well, guys, we appreciate you all hopping on. Brendan, take us out with Terrific Terp.
Do my best. I know you guys like a little love life usually in the Terrific Terp, so I brought that part of it back. Keeping on the trend of the Reese family from our interview this week, this week's Terrific Terp is the father of Riley Reese and husband of legendary women's lacrosse coach Kathy Reese. Brian Reese, of course. Yeah, Maryland native. Of course, yeah, dude. Mike's boys apparently.
I'm on that, bro.
Of course, okay, dude. Yeah. Of course you are. My bad. I knew you knew ball like that. I'm gonna finish my read though. Thanks. Brian went to St. Paul School for high school in Maryland and then came to the University of Maryland to play lacrosse at Maryland. Other than falling in love with his wife, Kathy, he was a standout defenseman. In his senior year, he got All-American honors. After he left College Park, he never really put down a lacrosse stick. He graduated in 1998 and then played in the National Lacrosse League for 6 years. Overlapping, he also played in the MLL. During that time, was a 4-time All-Star. Continuing to overlap, he had many careers given the state of professional lacrosse. This is when Kathy Reese left Maryland to go be the head coach at Denver. Lucky for Brian, he was on the Denver Mammoth, so that worked out for the couple. And after his playing career, he stayed around the Denver area, being the GM of the Denver Outlaws from 2005 to 2011. He won Coach of the Year, actually, in the MLL in 2009. Then Brian also bounced around, working as an assistant coach under Kathy from 2009 to 2013. During that same time, he was still coaching himself, the game a little bit at the youth level, at the high school level. He was also the GM and the coach of the Chesapeake Bay Sox until 2017. As I mentioned, many overlapping careers for that guy. Before his most recent job, he worked at Glenelg County High School, coaching women's lacrosse and also working in their athletic department. He is now the coach of his daughter's team at Maryville Prep School, where he has worked since 2021. He won the IAAM Coach of the Year after leading the team to a conference title last year. He also serves as the assistant athletic director there. The man with a very successful lacrosse family and Maryland lacrosse legend is this week's Terrific Terp.
Another great Terrific Terp by Brendan to round out this week's episode. Congratulations to Here Mathis to getting married. And as always, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anywhere you find your podcast. Grab a Catalyst hot dog today. See you next week.
You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.